Why don't you give Pastor David a great hand as he comes and shares? Fantastic.
Good morning. If I talk from here, you guys will be able to see me okay? Yeah, you can be seated, yeah. Well, let's have some fun. If we're going to do it, let's enjoy it. All right, it's always a privilege to address leaders and volunteers. My heart is just to bring a contribution to your great church, Emerge. And so I'm just here to do my best to do you good. I can't climb inside you and help you with that experience. That's your experience. But my attitude is, hey, I'm leaning in and I'm here to bring as much as I can. You know, when I was a younger leader, I'd be sitting on the front row waiting to be introduced, saying, what am I going to say for 2 45-minute sessions? Now it's more a case of what do I leave out? You know, what don't I say? I could be trying to fit a little bit too much in, but hopefully this is being recorded, and if I say anything of value, then you can at least pause me and go, what did that guy say? What was that point? I often look at a group like this and see that you're the hidden heroes, really, of a church. I liken the analogy to a door, beautifully carved door, wow, cedar, magnificent. But what about the hinges? They're the hidden part, and that door doesn't work without them. And you guys are the hinges, you guys are the part of this church that make everything work, from the car park to the children's ministry to everything, the serving, the hospitality, the hidden heroes. Sure, others get to hold the mic, but the platform we stand on, somebody made it. This microphone, these guys are making all this multimedia work. So I'm very mindful of that, and any good pastor is. That really all they could do is get to stand on a platform that others have built for them. And so I want you to know that that's the posture of heart I'm coming to you with. All right, so in this first session we're going to talk about the inner life of the leader. And then the second session, we're going to talk about some more practical things about, what makes a great church in my mind, how to build it. I guess you'd call the second session more how to build a healthy church. Yeah? So this one's more about the inner life of the leader. And when I say leader, I know that there's volunteers as well. So can I just embrace you in that term? You're leading. Everything you are leads. Even if you're out there with one of those parking wands, you're leading with your attitude. If you're saying, get your car in there, well, you just led them with a bad attitude, but you were, in fact, leading, all right? But just don't do it that way. So can I just, alert you to the fact that when I use this term leader, I'm embracing everybody in this room. We're all leading in some way. Everything about you is leading with an attitude. All right, so why do I like to talk about the inner life of a leader? Because I think it's such a neglected area. We keep talking about all these principles, but what if I'm handing these principles to a person with insecurity and anger and all sorts of stuff? Well, it's just going to be a performance because, ultimately, you bring who you are into everything you do. So that's why I like to talk about the inner life of the leader. In the final analysis, you can only be publicly who you are privately. And if you want a fruitful ministry, we have to put in the unseen work of sowing into our lives before we enjoy the visible reward of fruitfulness. We don't expect fruitfulness just to sort of happen. Fruitfulness is not a gift. Yeah? It's not a gift. That's the result of sowing and nurturing, and that's where the fruit comes from, okay? So don't expect by gift what is primarily by fruitfulness, all right? So many leaders neglect their inner wholeness, and they prefer to go for the quick fix, the quick success formulas, rather than working on being genuine and authentic. So what's the good of working on those quick fix formulas? Formulas is at the root of your character, you're deceitful and uncaring, all right? We just created a really convincing hypocrite. That's what we did. That's what we taught you to be. So true success is based on who you are, and we bring who we are into everything we do. And so what I'm going to do is use the word lead and take the first letter of each one of those, that word, and spell out 4 things that I think has got to do with the inner life of the leader, volunteer, and they're all things I think are pertinent to our inner life. All right? You ready? All right. So, Lord, thank you again for the life and liberty, and help us today to learn to lean into you. Thank you, God, that we want to serve you ultimately, and we want to be better people in doing that. So, Lord, help me to communicate, help our hearts to be open in Jesus' name. All right, so let's do lead, L-E-A-D. The L is for learn. All good leaders are good learners, all right? If you want to keep leading, you must keep learning, okay? Let's face it. Can we just say this out loud? There is a lot of repetition in what we do, yeah? Particularly if you are like us. We have 4 services on a weekend. Come on now. I mean, that's repetition, all right? I know what that next song's going to be because I've already sat through 3 services, all right? And so how do we stay excited? How do we, when you do that year in, year out, week in, week out, how do you stop yourself from being a fat-headed know-it-all and you keep learning? How do you do that? This is a good question for us to ask when there's so much repetition. How do we stop ourselves getting into automatic pilot? Well, we stay curious. We ask questions. We keep learning. And that's a really critical part. I'm committed. As long as I'm leading, I'm learning. And because I'm the lid. How can I lead people beyond myself? So, the very thought of the fact that you're leading implies you are progressively keeping yourselves in front. And in today's world, there's no excuse for not learning because we're living in this highly connected age. We have podcasts, web seminars, YouTube. We have the best of all that, and we have mentors that we can connect with in podcasts, all right? So if you are the smartest person in the group of people that you mix with, it's time you got some new people to mix with, all right? Get some other people that you're hanging out with, because if you're deliberately engineered it that you're the smartest, well, you got issues, and it's time you stretch yourself a little bit more by mixing with some people that are going to be putting into your life or challenging you. So, all right then, David, let's be learners. Well, let's talk about the inner life of being a learner. Because you have to be a certain type of person to learn. And so let's get into the inner life of that. Everybody goes, yeah, let's be learners, cool. Well, guess what? Learning requires humility. Yeah? Because if I'm going to learn from you, I have to have the inner posture of knowing you know something I don't. And that's cool. I'm okay with that. That you know something that I don't know, and I'm going to be all right with that. If I'm too insecure to learn, I'm too insecure to take that posture that actually you might know something I don't, then that's called pride. God opposes the proud but gives grace to the humble. So it takes humility to learn, because I have to be okay with the fact that I don't know some stuff. You know, the thing that's really a bummer about these 2 45-minute sessions is I'm not going to learn anything, because I'm going to do all the talking. And what I'm going to show you in a minute is, to learn, you need to shut up and listen. All right? So you're hopefully going to do the learning. I'm going to do the talking. And it takes humility to shut up and know this person knows something that I don't know, and I'm going to humble myself and adopt this posture of learning from it. All right? So that doesn't mean I'm stupid. It just means that I have respect and value for someone else. Yeah? I'm respecting and valuing someone else. And that takes humility. So here's a good question to check on your inner wholeness is, when was the last time you asked for help? When was the last time that you said, listen, I don't know how to do this. Can you help me? You know, or postured the question around that. When was the last time you asked for help? As I said, that isn't a sign of weakness. That's actually a sign of maturity. When members of my team ask for help, I don't think, oh, yeah, such a weak link in the chain. Mentally flushing them. No, that's not happening. I'm thinking, great. Look, I already know they don't know. It's worrying me when they aren't asking, because I know they don't know. And I'm thinking, well, what are you doing? You never asked. All right. So it's actually not a sign of weakness to say, hey, I need help, but actually a sign of maturity. Insecure people would rather struggle than admit they need help. And as a result, they stop learning and they're stuck. That's what happens. All right. So the reality is, we're not fooling anyone but ourselves. We need to stay curious, ask questions. So if you're struggling in a particular area of your life or ministry right now, you have not, because you didn't ask. You have not because you didn't ask. You know, if you ask, Jesus said, and it will be given to you, but you didn't ask. You weren't humble enough. You didn't want to appear to be a weak person, but actually you're actually shooting yourself in the foot. Please ask, and it will be given to you. So first thing to be a good listener is we got to humble ourselves. People know stuff that I don't, and I need to adopt that position of humility. The second thing you need to be a learner is a good listener. Proverbs 1:5, let the wise listen and add to their learning, and let the discerning get guidance. Proverbs 1:5. Well, I thought the wise was meant to do all the talking. But it says, let the wise listen and add to their learning, all right? So now, do we all know that there's a difference between hearing and listening? Hearing has got to do with, your voice hitting my eardrums and triggering those neuron pathways. And I can hear. But listening to you requires that I drop my inner insecurities and defensive attitudes and honestly seek to understand you. That's listening. Some of us in this room, well, all of us can hear, but not necessarily all of us can listen. Because listen is an inner attitude. We started with humility. Now we're talking about this capacity to listen. I, by nature and temperament, are not a good listener. To those of you I'm a good teller. All right. So I had to learn and work on this discipline. How many of you here are married? Men, married, you know. Isn't it amazing? Our wife is talking away, and then she stops and says, "You're not listening." We go, "What? How did you know that?" Yep. Yeah, I can hear, but I'm not listening. I've gone on a mental journey somewhere, you know. It's like, and so we've been married for 39 years, and my wife will say, come back, where were you? Come back in here, come. Yeah. Oh, sorry, honey, yeah, I drifted off. All right, so she knows that, yeah, I was hearing, but I wasn't listening. And we know there's such a thing as fake listening. Yeah. Fake listening is when you're letting the other person talk while you're thinking of what you're going to say next. You know you're being fake listened to when the person says, "Now it's your turn." Whoa, now we're having turns? Oh my goodness. That's fake listening, all right? Fake listening is you're having your turn. Well, I go back internally to prove you wrong. I need to tune you out while I mentally process how I can be the superior one in this discussion. All right, that's not listening. Listening is the inner posture of a desire to understand. All right, so to listen, I need to stop mentally making this conversation into a contest of superiority. I'm not going to listen to you if I'm making this into a contest. And really, this is about who's the winner, who's superior. This is not a good place for listening. All right? So if I'm truly going to listen, I can't be driven by the need to be right. I'm just not going to listen to you. You know, for years I struggled with a thing that I now call tape measure misery. Tape measure misery. We all know what a tape measure is? Yeah, I had tape measure misery. Tape measure misery is where you live with a tape measure in your head, and when you meet people, you're measuring them. The clothes, the car, where did you go to school? Yeah, and if you're a pastor, how big's your church? Oh yeah, what's it? Your auditorium? You're mentally measuring them. All right? Tape measure misery. I'll tell you why it's always misery, because it's always about finding the midgets so you can be the giant. Yeah? How big's your church? Oh, okay, I'll go and find the midgets in the room and have coffee with them, because the big guys are over there. All right? So that's a misery, because I'm turning everything into a competition. I can't be glad for you, because if you're telling me how great things are going, I'm feeling smaller by the minute, because I turned it into a competition. And if you're doing well, that means I'm falling behind. You can see how sinister that becomes. And what happens when you have tape measure misery, you tend to sort of, even though you hate yourself for it, you're secretly hoping that everything goes pear-shaped for them so you can be awesome. And they're not awesome. Ouch. Yeah. It's tape measure. You know, we used to go to pastors' get-togethers. I hate it, because I was suffering from tape measure. Gatherings like this, I hated it. So if you're here today hating it, yeah. Because I just couldn't help it. I'm measuring, comparing. My wife, God knew the woman I needed. My wife, Sally, can just soak up from whoever's ministering. So she's a note taker. She'd be writing everything down. I'm looking at her going, what? No, don't write that down. Look, I could say it better than that. Look, what are you writing? I mean, what did he say that you want to write down? Yes, I mean, so comparing. But she'd be getting blessed. Oh, that was so good. Oh, did you hear? Oh, my God. And, of course, I'd be, the more she raved, the worse I felt. And we'd be driving home, and my wife didn't know she was doing it, but she'd say, I have never heard such good preaching in all my life. And I'm gripping the wheel thinking, woman, how long you been listening to me preach? And to add insult to injury, she'd buy all the books and the tapes and waddle out to the car with all the resource. And I'd be looking at it thinking, goodness, what the heck? All right. So she was so blessed, and I was as dry as an arrowroot biscuit. Why? Because she didn't suffer from tape measure misery. She just soaked it all up. It's the grace of God's coming to me through this person. So listen, when you're making everything into this competition of winners and losers, boy, it's a dry old life, all right? And we're not going to learn. I wasn't learning. If you suffer from tape measure, you're not learning. You're too busy comparing, trying to work out who's superior and who's inferior. And even though you hate yourself for it, you're secretly wanting the other person to fall back so you can feel better about yourself. It's a terrible thing to suffer from. So the next time you're in conflict with someone, here's a great way of bringing humility and listening together as a discipline. This is a great statement, a great question to ask is, next time you're in conflict with someone, ask them, please help me to understand why you did that. Please help me to understand. Try that in your marriage, in your ministry, if you're in the car park and they sort of park like that instead of like that, just go up to them and say, please help me to understand. I just need, rather than, what the? Just please help me to understand. Just try it. See, why I like that is it's bringing together humility and listening. Because, I know I'm making light of it, but actually, when you practice that, you're actually practicing these two disciplines of humility and listening. You're actually honestly saying, I want to understand. I honestly want to understand. Can you please help me? Because I don't have this understanding. So make that request, then be quiet, shut up, and listen to their response. And it's a great learning experience. I can't tell you the number of times that I've asked that and I've learned so much. Because I'm stuck in my own head. Yeah, I'm stuck. I can't experience life outside of myself. I've got to listen, all right? So, first letter is L, listen. Learn, and we learn through humility and listening. E is for effective. So good leaders, volunteers are committed to learning, and good leaders are committed to being effective. Now, there is a difference between effectiveness and efficiency, all right? Efficiency concerns itself with doing things right. Effectiveness concerns itself with doing the right things. Yeah. A good illustration would be, here's a guy runs the incredibly efficient ambulance service, picking up people from the bottom of a cliff. Here's this cliff. Everybody keeps taking selfies and falling over. And he has the most efficient ambulance service. He's worked out the best and the quickest way to get people to the hospital. He's got all the latest equipment in the back of his ambulance. He is just there so fast. It's just, everything is just really efficient. And here's another guy building a fence at the top of the cliff. That guy is being effective. One is focusing all their time and energy onto efficiency. The other is being effective. And so it seems obvious to us, doesn't it, that that's where we should be putting our efforts into building the fence at the top of the cliff instead of being busy running the ambulance. But we're living at a time when people are proud about how busy they are. I mean, you ask someone, how are you? And they say, I'm really busy. Since when is that an answer to my inquiry about how are you? But now you ask someone, how are you? How are you going? And now they're telling us, I'm very busy. Hang on, I just said, how are you? You said you're very busy. See, the silence in this room is telling me, what's wrong with that? All right. Well, I'll tell you what's wrong with that now it's the answer to my question is we're giving an identity message. We're saying, I'm important. I asked you how you are, and really what you wanted to tell me was, I'm really important because I'm busy. Well, you might be busy running an ambulance service, so I'm not impressed yet. All right? Okay? So we need to go, okay, so are we pouring our time and energy into doing things with very little thought as to what we're actually achieving? Because now we're living at a time when busyness is the achievement. Yeah? It's just, I'm busy. Well, what are you busy doing? Effective leaders know that 80% of the results flow out of 20% of the activities. I hope Pastor Mike doesn't mind me saying this, but actually it's not work harder, it's work smarter. Because actually 80% of the results come out of only 20% of the activity. All right? So we can be easily caught up in an activity trap, working hard to climb the ladder, only to discover it's actually leaning on the wrong wall. So every step we're taking is just getting us to the wrong place faster. Yeah? Great progress, wrong wall. Yeah? So that's the difference between efficiency. Look at my ladder. Look how fast I can get up my ladder. That's efficiency. The effective is going, yeah, but wrong wall. Wrong wall. Yeah. Okay. So how do we become more efficient or effective, I should say? We prioritize the things that are important on our schedule and then fill in the rest of our time with all the stuff we want to do. All right? So effective. What's effective? That's finding out the important. What exactly do I want to achieve? That's how we know what's we're being effective is we're actually doing what's important. What is important is we get clear about what we want to achieve in our marriage, in our ministry, in our personal life. Have you taken the time to get clear on what you want to achieve in your marriage, your ministry, your personal life, and lock those things into your priorities first, and then all the other bits you can fill in with stuff? Yeah, because stuff goes in there. But if you put in your important stuff, the important stuff that is actually taking you towards what you want to achieve, you put that first. I got in touch with this doing an exercise that I read in a book, and because I had trouble trying to identify, well, what is important to David? And so I imagined my own funeral. Here, I'm obviously not there, but here's my body, and in the audience, about to come up and speak about my contribution, what I did in their lives, how I have shaped and made life better for them, is my wife, my children, members of my congregation, my neighbours. what do I want them to honestly be able to say about me? That was me getting in touch with what's really important to me. You know, as a pastor, I've spent time with people in hospital in the last moments of their life. And I've yet to meet one of them that's regretting the fact that they didn't spend more time at the office. Man, in their last moments, they go, oh man, I should have spent more time at the office. Or I should have spent more time, obsessing of my Facebook updates. None of them. They're all regretted, wasted opportunities to leave the world a better place. That's what they're regretting. Wasted opportunities that they missed to leave the world a better place. So if you're not sure of how to sort out the important things from the secondary activities, try imagining that. Try to get in touch with that. What do I honestly want people to be able to say about me as a person? And then start mapping out deliberate steps to get you there. Is that okay? That's you being effective. Yeah? Thank you, both of you. Anybody else reckon? Yeah, okay. That's me learning to be effective. Okay. Good leaders are learning. Good leaders are effective. And good leaders lead with their attitude. All right? So any conversation that we're going to have with other people about their attitude needs to start with us standing in front of the mirror talking to ourselves. It starts with us, you know. It starts with us as individuals, all right? So we're leading by our attitude. So what is your attitude? It's part of our character that's visible for everyone to see. So actually your attitude is part of your character. It's the visible part of our... So, you know, if we're talking in terms of an iceberg, you know, they reckon 20% is above the water, 80% is under. Well, guess what? Your attitude is the part of your character that's actually visible, and you bring who you are into everything you do. I'm amazed at the number of people that are working on how they appear. Well, what's the point of that? I mean, never forget about how you appear. If you work on who you are, you don't need to worry about how you appear. It's just happening, all right? Okay? As I said, if you're focusing on your efforts of appearing to be somebody that you're not, the best you can hope to achieve is being a convincing hypocrite, all right? And we know the word hypocrite comes from this Greek word of acting, and where they would pick up different masks and they would wear a mask, act out the character. Then they'd pick up another mask, act out that character. They were appearing, but they weren't actually working on becoming that person. So, we're talking about the inner life of the leader here. This is why we're talking about this from a slightly different approach. You know, when you are constantly acting instead of being, if you're working on more your appearance rather than doing the hard work of actually working on your character, then you're constantly living with the tension and stress of being found out to be an imposter. Why would I put myself through that? You're actually meeting David's Torah. I'm not pretending. You know, my kids have been listening to Dad preach. They're not going, who is that guy? You know, he's down here, he's my dad, but now he's talking in King James English. He's saying, Jesus. You know, he doesn't talk like that at home around the kitchen table, but no, they know that's Dad. And now Dad's preaching, and now Dad's doing this, and now Dad's in the garden, and now Dad's... You get what I'm trying to say? I'm not worried, what did I say to this person, and how did I be to that one, and how... I don't have to live with that stress. I am a being who I am. You know, you ever seen those people on horizontal bungees, you know? The horizontal bungees? The first time I saw it was at youth. You see all sorts of bizarre things at youth. So I had to go to youth to see them using this horizontal bungee. They're running down this thing till they can't go any further, and then it pulls them back and they slide along, and it's all so much fun, apparently. If you're young, it's fun, that's fun. Well, I want to tell you, if that's who I really am, but I keep pushing myself to act out being someone else, the tension with every step of me projecting my persona into being someone I'm not, until in the end to hold myself in that character. I am using up so much energy just to keep projecting that persona. In the end, I'm going to burn out. And people go, why did he burn out? What was the problem? I'll tell you why. Because just to stand in that persona now. And what I should have been doing was going back here and saying, I'm going to get healed, I'm going to get whole, I'm going to get help, I'm going to deal with that. And so, yes, I'm pushing out, but I'm actually dealing with who I am. So this is the inner life that we're talking about here. We've all tired of hearing of leaders and politicians and people of influence who didn't mess up because of their capabilities. They messed up because of their character. And they lost their place of influence, not because of their capabilities, but because of their character. And I want to tell you that if you're in this for the long haul, I would suggest you work more on your character. Yeah, come on, all leaders are learners, so we're working on our capabilities. But don't neglect working on your character. Yeah, absolutely understanding this is me working on. So if your capabilities are the shining jewels of what you're doing, then your character is the gold that's holding it all together. You've got these jewels. Wow, look at these capabilities, gifts. That's wonderful. But I'm not impressed till I know, wow, you got some gold character that's holding all those actually in place. Otherwise, it all starts to fall apart. Proverbs 4, verse 23, above all else. That's a moment. That's getting our attention, I hope. He says, above all else, guard your heart. For everything you do flows from it. Wow, what a big statement. Above all else, why? Because actually that's where it's all coming from. That's where it's coming from. Guard your heart, because if your attitude is wrong, then everything else you're about to do is wrong. Okay? Right, so how do we guard our attitude? We come to our last letter, D. And this is amazingly important. And easily we could wax eloquent for some time. Actually, I am going to need the whiteboard. For this, I apologize to those who asked me earlier. I got that wrong. I need it. So here's two scriptures here in this letter D, which is deny your ego. Deny. All right? Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves. If I could sort of maybe have it up here, guys. Thanks. Cool. And lock those wheels. Yep. Cool bananas. All right. Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny. Let's give those guys a hand. Oh, they did an amazing job. Wow, wow. I've seen people put whiteboards in place, but that was amazing. There you go. Spirit of encouragement in the house. Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and daily follow me. So there's the big D word, deny themselves. Here's another one in John 12. It says, I tell you the truth, unless a kernel of wheat is planted in the soil and dies, it remains alone. But its death will produce many new kernels, a plentiful harvest of new lives. Those who love their life in this world will lose it, but those who care nothing for their life in this world will keep it for eternity. So, to really cut to the quick on this one, because this is one I could really wax eloquent on big time, let me just draw on the board here some things to help us really get this point quickly. All right, so if we were to get the lid off, first of all, and let's just say that above the line is your conscious life, below the line is your subconscious life. Isn't it amazing when you draw on the board, you have a moment of dyslexia and you think, how do you spell that? All right. Okay, and conscious, yeah. So what I've learned to do, just a tip in leadership, when you're drawing on the board and you don't know how to spell it, you sort of just do the first couple of letters and then you just spell the left, and then you look at the class with confidence as if, hey, come on, guys, yeah, you got that right. Nobody dare challenge that scribble. I'm hiding the fact that I can't spell that word, all right? So, and you just stare down the people. All right. So you're learning lots of leadership points. Okay. So if we were to say that was your ego, okay, and our ego has three primary needs. Power and control is an ego need. Esteem and affection is an ego need. And security and survival. All right? Now, all of us in this room with an ego, obviously, your probably ego has all of those, but it actually has a predominant one. So here's a person, let's take a person with an ego need that needs to be fed. Their ego needs to be fed in this area of power and control. Pastor Mark gets up and makes it known to the church that we have a need for people to go and work in children's church. And their little ego says, that's a great place to get power and control over those little kids. Yeah, I can boss them. I can look awesome. I can get a feed in that area. So these egos, they all look for a place. They're attracted to certain places, all right, and they avoid others, all right? So a power and control ego is probably not, come on, we need some volunteers. Everybody's equal on this team and we all get to shit. No, they're not going to go there. Yeah, okay, because they're going to avoid that one, all right? Power and control, children's ministry, yeah, all right? So now they're in children's ministry with a hidden agenda, all right? That's why they're there. God bless the little children. But I'm really here with a hidden agenda. All right, I'm feeling good about bossing everybody around. No, you can't go to the toilet. Hold that, hold that, hold that. Yeah, it feels good. Okay. They're there, and their ego is hiding very well in that place. But the problem is, other egos have also headed for children's ministry, all right? And so now, at the debriefs and everything, they're bumping into another power and control ego, and so we end up with a kaboom moment, all right? A kapow moment. What happens is then we get into what I call ego movies, you know, where we're mentally strangling that person, slashing their tires and lying awake at night trying to see if we can put laxatives in their coffee so they can't, just sort of all sorts of ego movies start sort of bubbling up. Okay. All right. So we got lots of frustration and everything. But what happens then is eventually I'm disappointed, I'm disillusioned. After all this internal dialogue of ego, I exit. And I come back down here, back into subconscious, so I quit. I might even be saying, I'm leaving, I'm going somewhere else. This is just, no, my ministry has not been recognized. All right, but really it was about your ego. Other egos looking for areas of esteem and affection. Other egos are looking for security and survival. And so this person lives in this continual cycle, around and around and around. And of course, it's very well hidden in Christianese language. It lives quite comfortably in there. The Lord told me, but really they were speaking to themselves in the name of the Lord. All right, it was really their ego speaking, and they haven't really learnt to do what Jesus told us to do, that if we're going to serve him, we have to deny ourselves. All right? So coming back to those scriptures that I read, when Jesus said, unless you deny yourself, take up your cross and follow me, you cannot be my disciple. He was not saying, I won't let you into my club. He was simply stating the fact. If you live like this, you cannot live as my disciple, loving people, forgiving people, sacrificially, He wasn't using it as a term to disqualify you. He was simply telling you, where I'm trying to take you, your ego won't want to go. So unless you learn to deny your ego, so what breaks this whole thing, this continual cycle of suffering and confusion and hurt for this person, is round about here, they catch their ego. They realize, they have this moment of realization that it's their ego. And that is a very powerful... See, how can I deny something that I think is me? If Jesus is telling you to deny yourself, it must be something you don't need. Because if you needed it, to tell you to deny it would be ridiculous. So he's talking about an egoic self, not your unique self, your egoic self. There's a self you're meant to love. Love your neighbor as yourself. That's a unique self. But there's an egoic self we should deny. It was the egoic self that God was actually tapping Adam on the shoulder on when, you know how he ate of the tree, he went and hid, God came looking for him, and God asked him a question. Adam said, I'm here, I'm naked and I'm ashamed, and God said, who told you? Lots of people think it was the devil. It wasn't, it was his ego. Awakened in that moment of the knowledge of good and evil, there came the self, the egoic self. This self that's talking to you all the time. Well, I don't think I like this. Well, I didn't get recognized. Nobody noticed me. We're going to have morning tea in a moment. I'll just hang back there and let's see if anybody brings me a cup of coffee. Well, yeah, no, they didn't. Yeah, see, they didn't want me here today. Everybody else wants to be, but not me. See, I know. So that's the ego going. Spirit doesn't talk to you like that, just in case you didn't know. So this is the self that has been so talking to you since your early childhood, that it's so attached to you now that it takes some work to realize, I gotcha, you sucker. There you are, you rotten thing. You've been talking to me all this time. And because the ego never talks to you in the third person, oh, you should. It always says, I should. And that's what makes it difficult to separate. But you are going to be trapped in a cycle of suffering until you can identify self enough to say no to it, deny it. So God said to Adam, who told you? Who told you were naked? I mean, you've always been naked, Adam. Come on, you were born that way. You've lived that way all this time. I mean, come on, you've always been naked. Now, where did this voice come from? You've always been naked, and now there's a voice telling you you should be ashamed. See, God was trying to alert Adam even back then of this voice that had suddenly started talking to him and the need to deny it. So I'm ending with that last D, and I want to tell you that it's just so important to the inner life of the leader, the inner wholeness of the leader. You know, personally, I'll give you some of my heresy while I'm here, but I don't believe it's heresy. There is no such thing as an immature spirit person. It's impossible. What's happening is your spirit, you're not broken. There is something else suppressing your spirit from being what it is, perfect, whole, and complete. It's your ego. What's keeping us out of being who we truly are, God doesn't make junk, all right? So where's all this junk coming from? It's coming from your ego. So it's got nothing to do with you trying to be more spiritual. It's got everything to do with you removing the thing that's preventing your spirit from rising and doing what it does. Spirit has all the fruit in it. It doesn't need to go somewhere and learn to be patient, peaceful, loving, and kind. Spirit does what spirit is, but there is an ego that's suppressing it, holding it down. And when the more you can remove your ego, the more spiritual you'll become. Spirituality is not some great achievement. It's just the removal of... That's why Jesus said, unless you deny yourself, you can't go where I'm trying to take you. Why? Because ego doesn't want to love enemies. It doesn't want to forgive. It doesn't want to be Christian. It's always going to be a struggle. If you've been trying to get your ego to be Christian, wow, that's a struggle. Actually, yeah. So lead, learn, identify the things that are important, be effective, devote, effective husband, wife, parent, attitude, and the big kahuna one to end with is deny your ego. All right, God bless you. Break time.
That was awesome.